welcome, welcome, welcome. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, my background's in school psychology, and I am also the founder of the Prepared School Psych Community and PSW Monthly. My background is in school psychology. I worked as an administrator for a couple of years, and nowadays I do lots of trainings, either in person or virtual, about a lot of different topics. And today I brought Amy back here with me again, because Amy and I created some training materials this year for a training that focused on evaluating students whose kind of disability was already established. So, for example, students with significant cognitive impairments, of course, they're going to be eligible under intellectual disabilities. And many students with low incidence disabilities, such as hearing impairments or visual impairments, they're also going to require special education to address the educational impact. But for some school psychologists who do not regularly work with this population, and that's why I came in to do that training, our role in the IEP process might be slightly different than what we are used to. So today we wanted to share a few tips that were shared at that training with all of you. So Amy's going to give our first tip.
Definitely. So, as a school psychologist, we all know we have so many jobs. We wear so many different hats, even in the meetings that we go to. So, one really common hat that we all wear is, as Jenny mentioned, establishing eligibility, establishing that disability. Hey, is that student eligible for special education or not? And a lot of times, that's the main question. And we get a lot of practice in doing that and wearing that kind of eligibility discovery hat. But sometimes we get to meetings, and as Jenny mentioned, eligibility has already been established. That's not really the biggest question that the team has. And everyone in the meeting is going to be well aware of that child's eligibility area, and they're going to be well aware that that child requires special education. To Jenny's point, thinking about some of those moderate to severe populations when we are, saying statements like that. So in these situations, what hat do we wear? We might actually have to establish eligibility in terms of like the legal purpose of the meeting, but then what else do we offer to the team, and kind of figuring out how do we expand the way that we're thinking about what we have to offer and our role in this meeting. Some things you might want to think about are, what are those child's strengths? What do they love? What are their relative areas of cognitive strength? What are their areas of need? Even the flip side of that. Hey, these were their biggest areas of need. We might need some goals in these areas, X, Y, and Z. So just those might be some questions you can wear as you're trying on all the different hats that you have to keep in your back pocket for all these meetings. So just kind of some additional questions you may want to answer rather than just that eligibility piece.
Well, I know one of the things that we had put into the outline of the training was capitalizing on strengths. And I know sometimes that can be an interesting word to use when we're talking about students who have significant impairments. And so one of the other ways we were talking about not just strengths, but something else that you had shared too was their interests and their preferences, right? And how can we include some of that information as we are talking about goals that we're going to be working on for the student, behavior strategies, and all of those different pieces. So I know that when I did that training, there was a lot of feedback from the participants of kind of expanding on just the word strength, but also
Yeah,
including the interests and the preferences of the student.
totally.
One of the other tips we wanted to talk about was in regards to explaining the evaluation results at the meeting. We're sitting down at these meetings, and this is in particular for a parent who's really very aware of their students' difficulties. And Amy and I both shared a story with one another about parents who were very upfront in meetings saying, like, I already know this. I already know this about my child. And so again, depending on our background and how frequently we do these kind of evaluations, sometimes we're caught a little off guard because we don't get to talk about all the different, like, but then I gave another test. You don't want to hear about that either, right? But what we know is stating over and over again that a student with intellectual disabilities scored in the well below average range on this test and on this subtest and on this. that might not be the most useful statement that the parent who is already very aware. There are definitely instances where we need to be very upfront about where the student is functioning. We're not talking about those situations. We're talking about those situations where the parent is like, I already know my student's ID. So, one strategy would be to focus on how the student has progressed in this area since the last evaluation, and then talk about next steps. So, if you need to, or if it's appropriate, you could still start out your explanation with a statement of where they're at in comparison to other students their age. There's nothing wrong with having a broad statement. We don't want to not have informed information here. But then we could talk about how have their self-help skills grown in the last 3 years in the educational setting, right? We might not need to go on and on about in the home setting because the parent already knows that. They're the ones who filled
Mhm.
out that form, right? But where have we seen that growth in the educational setting? And then what are the next skills the team is going to be addressing, right? Kind of a different stance instead of just saying, you filled out the ABAS, the Vineland, the DP4, whatever, right? The teacher filled it out. This was well below average. This was well below. Might not be the best way to explain all of this information.
Definitely. And, kind of both of these tips, the expanding your role in meetings, as well as talking about growth and keeping all of that in mind, those are both concepts that Jenny and I are going to be talking about in one of our summer boot camp sessions titled Bringing the Experts Together, Collaborating with Your IEP Team on Goals. We really want you to come chat with us, come think about some of these things, and we are really going to focus on taking into consideration all of the assessment data, as we mentioned, to really make sure that we are writing goals that really meet the students' needs, really meeting them where they are at. Things like Jenny mentioned, bringing in the interest, bringing in preferences, making sure we're focusing on some of those more helpful concepts. So you are going to walk away from our session with strategies to try at your very next IEP meeting. We cannot wait to see you there. To learn more about it, feel free to check out all the info on www.jennyponzerick.com.
Well, and someone had asked me recently who was the right person to come to summer boot camp. And I have to admit, for those of you who don't know the background of summer boot camp, I originally created this a couple of years ago to really support those that were newer to the field. I, like many of you, are part of school psych Facebook groups, and like every summer I would read post after post of people who are entering the field, people who are entering their internship, just wanting a space to like ask questions and know how to prepare themselves for this most interesting fall that they're about to embark upon. But I have to admit, we have had hundreds of veteran psychologists who have attended in the past, and we have lots of veteran psychs who have already signed up this year as well. So when we create the training topics, including the one that we just kind of talked about here, we really try and keep everyone in mind, right? Some of you are just newer to the field, and working with students that are in the mod severe population doesn't always get touched upon a lot in our university programs, and kind of depends on what your practicum and internship placement, you know, had available for you. But we have a lot of veteran school psychologists who haven't always had these opportunities as well. You might be moving to a new school, a new district. You might get a new program on your site. A lot of different things that doesn't matter how long you have been in this field. So whether you're a student, a recent grad, you're still in your first 5 years, or you are celebrating your 25th anniversary of being a school psych, like I am going to be this fall,
Woohoo!
we really try and make the sessions available for everyone. So we'd love to have you in our summer boot camp. If you have any questions about summer boot camp that we haven't answered, feel free to send us a message through social media, or go ahead and head over to the website, jennyponzerick.com, and post us a question over there. Either myself or someone on my team will get back to you as soon as possible. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.